Mike Lunney, I think that teaching is one of the most noble professions there is. John Wooden. Uh, if you don't know John Wooden, legendary basketball coach, UCLA, but he basically said that teaching is one of the most important professions for the future of our society.
Hmm.
Um, that that what teachers do, and I'm going to go ahead and be specific, music educators, what we do, whether we remember it or not, all the time, impacts the future of our society.
Hmm.
That uh, I know sometimes it seems like uh, we develop the got to go make the donuts, and I know that's an old reference,
Yeah.
but we got to get up and go do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to take a moment today, if you'll go with me on this. Uh, we're finishing up a fall semester, or we have finished a fall semester. I laugh when I see all the memes that people put up on Sunday that, oh no, tomorrow's Monday. It's kind of oh, I've enjoyed my break and it's time to start thinking like an educator again. I'm going to have to go back to school. We tease when we say this sometimes. I got to go see those kids. But I'm going to tell you because I appreciate you. You're a positive person. You've always managed to be encouraging and reminding all of us that what we do is not just about us. It's about creating good people.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought it would be great today if you'll go with me on this. I'm kind of springing this on you,
Okay.
but help me encourage our music educator audience. And what would you say as somebody who is now in a consultant mode as opposed to going to a classroom every day to help us remember why we do what we do, or remember what we what is it that we're doing really, not the lesson plan, but with young people and as educators. Is that too hard of a task there?
No, no, not at all. I'm a really strong believer, like lots of educators, that especially in music, that we're not really tasked to make great music. We're tasked to make great citizens and great people. We just happen to use music as that tool. And
Right.
with our system, a lot of times it's very performance oriented. We must play at a certain level to get recognition, and parents and kids and band directors and principals, they recognize that, and it's there. But the goal is really to have good people at the end
Right.
of this process.
Right. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
And if we can make that work, I think one thing to remember, it's a lot easier to work with someone that has a great attitude and a little bit of talent rather than someone with lots of talent and a bad attitude. So as educators, I think I would encourage them to, you know, don't neglect the kid who has just a little bit of talent, but they have a really great attitude. Kind of focus on that person, because that person, they might not ever be the best flute or clarinet player, but they might be a CEO of a major company someday. And they
yeah,
might have 1,000 people underneath them that they know how to treat, because that's how they would treat their band friends. Does that make sense?
it does. And I'm going to go back to a conversation we had a while back about culture.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the your leadership, how you would do the animal psychology.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to say don't neglect the retrievers?
That's right. Don't neglect the retrievers, because they will always show back up. They'll always meet you at the door wagging their tail. You
And
know what I
all they
mean?
want is for you to notice
To
and
notice and be
say
a part. They just want to be a
you are
part.
awesome. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So don't ignore your retrievers. Um, I think it's easy as we get caught up so much into all the Oh, the stupid faculty meetings and the things we have to do, our assessments and all the things we have to do as a teacher. And it's easy to forget that the kids who are in your band, for the most part, are the ones that want to be in your band.
Yeah.
There's some mama makes them take band or whatever. You know, it is what it is. But most of them really do want to be there. So I think that's a cool thing. One thing to remember coming back out of this break, two things I want to encourage them to do. One
Okay.
is there's two types of band directors, in my opinion. There's some that can turn it off completely. And for whatever, let's say 2 weeks, they can not look at an email. They can don't think about band. They just enjoy the life. And then that Sunday before band starts again on that Monday, just making up dates here, then they're okay with that. They just turn it back on and they go about their business. I think that's awesome. Um, I didn't fit into that category. So
I was not that guy.
I had to figure out a way to make that work. So the way I made that work was I would allocate 45 minutes to an hour, like 5 or 6 days before the new semester started. And I would just tell myself, and I'd even set a timer. So I'm going to go and I'm going to answer my email. I'm going to make my lesson plans. I'm going to look at a couple of scores. I'm going to figure out logistics for things. And then I could turn that back off. And after that time, I felt like I could engage with my family and do things I needed to do that were important. If I did not do that, I still kept thinking about those things.
Yeah.
And it made it to where I couldn't really participate fully with my family. And I hope that makes sense. So don't
It does.
feel guilty out there that you take X amount of time to get that stuff planned and then turn it off. That's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about that. Otherwise, you're going to be thinking about that first rehearsal, how the setup's going to be every day for
Right.
14 days.
So, and then there's the people like me that if I won't let myself turn it off because if I do, I don't have the automatic on switch.
Yeah.
It'll take me as long to catch up as it will the kids to get, and so we're all just
Yeah.
kind of struggling to remember what do we do now? How do we do this? What should I be
Yeah.
doing right now? I kind of have to have some engagement, like you say,
Yeah.
to get
And I
myself back up to speed.
And I think the big thing to really push, you've got to make it to where your off time and your work time match your personality.
Yeah, that's
You
a good
shouldn't
thing.
feel
Good
you
saying.
shouldn't
Yeah,
feel guilty because, oh man, I worked on my stuff for 45 minutes a day for 7 days. Now I feel guilty. No, don't feel guilty. If that works for you, do 45 minutes. That gives you another 23 hours if you don't sleep that you can spend time with
yeah,
your family. You know what I mean? So it's make it where it works for you and don't try to compare yourself to other people
right.
and feel guilty about it.
One of the great philosophers simply said, "Know thyself."
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. No doubt about it. Okay. Um,
cool.
and one thing to encourage them, the whole game of teaching is energy. It is
I agree
energy.
with that.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And so if you don't take care of what you need to take care of at the appropriate time, to me, that's the biggest energy suck there is. You know what I mean? It
I
pulls
do.
energy from me personally. If I don't take care of things when they need to be taken care of, if I don't, I don't know if you're this way, Derek, but I can find myself spending 10 times more time worrying about completing a task than finally sitting down and doing
That
it.
it takes to do it.
Why didn't I just do my travel log for IRS
Right.
and just be done with it? I'll worry about that for a month and then I'll sit down and it only takes about 30 minutes.
Right.
So, so try to figure out what's working for you. For me, we've all got our things, but for me, that's one of my worst things I participate in. I spend more time worrying sometimes than it does to actually do a task. And, uh,
Right.
and worry is just we all do it. We can all be philosophical and say that worrying is pointless. Yes, it is. Worrying wastes time. Yes, it does. Do we all worry? Yes, we do. Okay.
It doesn't change the fact that we
Yeah.
worry.
But perhaps we
So
can worry about the right things and perhaps we can just get the task completed so we don't have to. That'd be my encouragement. Is that an encouragement? I don't know if that's an
sure,
encouragement or not.
we were
But
talking about it from the standpoint of energy. So
yeah,
you know me and my quotes. My one of my favorite Benjamin Franklin quotes says, "Energy and persistence conquers all things."
yeah,
So uh, determine you're going to get it done,
yeah.
and don't waste energy worrying about it.
Yes, exactly.
Throw that energy into being persistent to get the things done you got to get done, so you can enjoy the time.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Man,
Because I think
and
that's the biggest thing that robs us of enjoying our time off is we're worried about the things that A, we haven't done, or B, we need to get done. And so we just spend all our time tensed up trying to pretend like we're enjoying and relaxing. We're not. Persistence, get it done
get
and
it done.
relax.
Yeah. Another thing we have to kind of accept, and I hope this lands well with most people out there. We do not teach. We don't teach as we're taught to teach. We don't teach the way our college professors taught us to teach. We teach how we were taught.
Yeah.
Acknowledge this truth and make it work for you. Now, you're going to gain some ideas from your college professors, but I'll even go as far as most of us, we don't parent by the way we read the book. We tend to parent the way we were raised, and we try to correct the things we didn't agree with. And if there's some families out there, there's generational curses, then that does need to be broken. But we
Yeah.
tend to have that, we have that tendency, don't we? We parent the way we were parented. And I can say this there's times I've said something to my band, and I could swear it was Greg Miller's voice coming out of my body.
Exactly what I was getting ready to say. We've
Yeah.
all had the experience where we
Yeah.
say things and we go, I just said things my dad said my whole life,
That's
or
right.
my
That's
mother
right.
said.
And
And it's the
not
same way
saying
with
how
teaching.
our dads and moms did it was 100% right because we're all humans, but we tend to do that. We tend to, and that's why those generational curses exist,
Yeah.
because we tend to do things the way we were taught how to do them, the way we were taught, So you've got to kind of embrace that. So if you had a really, really good high school band director or middle school band director, it's easier to acknowledge. If you had a really poor experience, I know some really good band directors out there that had really mediocre high school band directors
Yeah.
as part of their high school training. And then they were great musicians. So they went to college and became a director. Sometimes they have to fight that, So I encourage you to kind of, again, know yourself. Am I doing it this way because that's what's best for the band? Or that's just comfortable for me because it's how I was taught?
And there's also this side of it. We all know the right things to say, but even just because we say it doesn't mean that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do what I say, not what I do. Do as I
Yeah.
say, not as I do. But are you modeling what you say?
Yes.
And if you're
Yeah.
not, fix one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I think another one to kind of think about is how do we motivate people, in our programs. So I encourage you to think about this for a second. There's three ways that I find that I can motivate people, and none of this is like discipline or punishment. But number one, I just have in this order: we can motivate by competition.
Okay.
We can. It's not the best way. We can motivate by cooperation. We really can. If they cooperate together, they'll get better as a band, as human beings. Number three is creation, by creating. Of all those three, the highest level of motivation is creation. It's not competition, it's not cooperation, it's creation. So if you've got I remember in my little beginner trumpet classes or horn classes, we would have a little recital of music they wrote. They
Oh wow.
loved it. They loved it. I mean, they only know like 8 notes, but then they
Yeah.
would they would put together a little song and they would try to write it down the best of their ability because we knew a little bit of theory. Some would just kind of do it by ear, but they just loved doing that. And it was so motivational because all of a sudden they're worried about getting a good tone quality, of tonguing correctly, when to slur, dynamics, when to stop notes. How do we stop notes? And that wasn't competition. There was no first prize for best original solo written. There was no cooperation because they didn't work with any other kid to do this. They just sat at home and did it. And so I just want to kind of push that to you that creation it doesn't have to be writing their own music. I would encourage you to stop when you're rehearsing your band and ask them pertinent questions about the music. How can we create this in a more musical way? What can we do here to make this more musical? That's creation. And some
Yeah.
kid might say, oh, I think we really need to get really, really soft. And then in the next portion. We need to start soft and gradually get stronger and be really, really strong at this point, and tongue a little bit stronger, but more air. So it's like an accent.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool.
creation.
Right.
Instead of play the notes, nothing but the notes, so help us God.
So
You
help me
know,
God.
yeah.
That's funny.
So they're scared to death to do anything. Okay. So I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, I, I hesitate to say this now. I was going to piggyback that with uh, as we encourage the educator to remember the weakest form of leadership is dictatorship.
Hmm.
And I think you know, conversely, the strongest form of leadership is actually caring about them and figuring out how to help them become. Don't just do what I say because I say so,
Yeah.
but it kind of engages that creative process, like you're saying. So let's talk. Let's look at this because I think sometimes we hear creation and we think that there has to be a product at the end of it.
No.
Maybe we're talking about engaging the creative process in our thinking, just like you
Yes.
said. So we just played that. What do you think we could do to make that more musical? That's engaging the creative process. Great thought, Mike. Great thought.
Yeah. And to really kind of push home the first part of that, the weakest form of motivation is competition.
Sure.
It really, and it has competition has to be there, and we have to live with it, and we have to thrive on it at times. But we have to know in our mind that's the weakest form of motivation. Kids don't join band to win a trophy.
Right.
That's never talked about in the process of when they're in beginner band. It's like, they just join because they want to play flute.
Right.
And they want to play clarinet. So the weakest form of motivation, and I'm not saying it has no energy to it because we do need to compete, but that is the weakest form of motivation is competition.
Okay.
Use it when needed.
You can tell me to stand down if you want to. I also think it's the ugly side of music education. Sometimes all we're trying to do is beat everybody else instead of what's the best version we can create and make music.
Yes. Don't make me go get Stephen Cox. In fact, I wanted him to
Oh,
come on
Dr.
one time
Cox.
as a podcast guest, and I've already
Oh,
talked
that's
to him. He's willing to come aboard, and we're not necessarily going to just focus on competition, but he's got some really cool ideas. He's a Grammy educator, Grammy Award winner, and works for the Willis Foundation. And he goes,
sure.
"Hey, I'd love to be on your podcast someday." So we got to get Steven on here, but we always joke about it because Steven is very anti-competition,
Right.
and he's not necessarily wrong.
But I also think we lose sight of the fact that a lot of the competition we create is to evaluate the person in front of the group as opposed to the group.
Isn't
We
that the
make
truth?
we make it about them and all they're doing is what we're teaching them to do.
Yeah, that's true.
That sounds like
We're almost getting
I
discouraging here, so we better watch out.
no, but what I'm saying is in the vein of encouragement, care more about your kids and the journey they're on than
Yeah.
a trophy.
Yes. 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 That's exactly right. Okay. Um, Another one to kind of think about, and this sounds really philosophical and like let's hold hands and sing kumbaya. But if it comes
Wait,
between
I'll get
being,
my guitar.
that's right, get your guitar. If it comes between being right and being kind, choose being kind because you can always go back and be right. There's sometimes that you just have to kind of stand down and just go, I'll give you an example. Some kids late to class like 4 days in a row, and every nerve and muscle and brain cell in your being wants to just chew them out. But you don't know if their parents just split up, if dad just lost his job, if you don't know what's happening in their home life.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't discipline children, but don't rail on a child. When you have a choice to be kind, wouldn't it be better just to say? I think Jay Lester said this on one podcast I heard him. Said some kid came in late to class when he first started at Hardin Simmons this last year, and the kids were all the students were looking at Jay like, "What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do?" And then Jay said all he did is looked at the kid and he goes, "Everything okay?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Try not to be late tomorrow." All right, everybody, let's go back to letter A.
Right.
And it kind of sets that tone of I'm not here to chew your rear.
Yeah.
I'm just going to acknowledge that you're late. I'm going to ask if everything's okay. And it kind of opens that door if the kid might want to come in after rehearsal and go, Mr. Lunney, I've been late 4 times in a row and I need to tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
And they might not ever come to you, but if they do, choosing to be kind is a very good approach because you can
Sure.
always go back and chew them out if you wish. You can always call them in and say, all right, now you've been late 4 times and what's going on?
Right.
If that needs to happen, sometimes it does. Okay. But choose the kindness approach first. And I'm not saying be run over by the kids, but there's no need to rail on a kid who's been late 4 times in front of the entire group. I guess it's the old, you know, praise in public and criticize in private.
Well,
If
you're
you
you're
can.
you walked right into where I was going to comment that I stand by this, especially in the world of teaching and education. They don't care. The saying is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And so if you never demonstrate any sympathy or empathy or acknowledge that there may be something beyond them not respecting your time,
Yeah.
they don't really care if you don't care about them. And I didn't say that very well, but at
No,
the
but
same
you're
time,
right. You're right.
I don't think that public floggings are necessarily the greatest motivator or the greatest conductor to a positive experience.
Yeah. Chewing out a kid in front of the band does not keep the other kids from being late some other time.
Right.
Because I, as a student, I can still remember my high school years. If I knew all I was going to get was a public flogging, I might choose if that's worth it.
Right. Oh,
I'm
well.
going to go fill up my car, go get some donuts, get a cup of coffee. I'm going to be 15 minutes late to work. Yeah, yeah, they're going to yell at me.
Right.
So anytime there's a something happens like that, the kids start to make choices, and so do we when we
Right.
deal with the people who are in authority over us.
And even beyond that, I think you compound what wasn't that big of a deal suddenly becomes a big deal because now
Yeah,
you're a jerk.
yeah, yeah. You kind of win the battle but lose the war, kind of
Right.
moment. And we don't know again what these kids are going through. You got to remember, and my friends out there need to hopefully remember that sometimes we're the only sense of stability and maturity in their life. There's kids who come back from break. You're excited as a director to have break time. There's
Right.
a lot of kids that are not excited to have break time because now they're in a home life that they have no idea what's going on. Some of them don't. I mean, I hate to be so. Hopefully, this doesn't sound overly dramatic. Some of them don't even eat as well.
Right.
They eat better when they have the breakfast at school and they have lunch at school, and then they can scrounge up something for dinner somewhere. Where all of a sudden they've got 14 days off, and they might not know where their next meal is coming from. And I don't think that's overly dramatic. And
I don't either.
there's
And I also
there's
think
abuse at
that
home, and I mean, we're the only sense of stability for
especially
some.
in music, especially in music programs, you've seen that floating around on social media that that's their family, but it's their routine, it's their security, it's their
Hmm.
meals, it's a warm place to be,
Yeah.
and they're part of something bigger than themselves. So I agree with you. When
Yeah.
we when we're gone for 3 weeks, they've been just kind of floating, waiting to get back. But
Yeah. But isn't that a cool sense of, I don't know, I kind of liked being the one that was stable.
yeah,
It meant a lot to me to be able to model that behavior for students who needed it the most. Now, there's lots of students that have really solid home lives, and
yeah,
they just see it as, oh, he's just like my dad or he's just like my mom. But there's others that it's a foreign universe. They're looking at like, oh my gosh, this is a person who thinks through what they're going to say, and they're going to approach things. If they make a mistake, they apologize.
yeah.
So take that as a means of excitement as an educator that you get to be that person where there might not ever be another person for that child to
Right.
help out on that.
Yeah. I'm going to let it go. Great, great
Okay.
point. So be kind.
And the last one I want to throw out there, and then we can just talk about other things or whatever. But strive to build relationships with staff, parents, students, and admin by learning their language and learning what goals they have in their lives. We've got to learn how to compromise. There's so many directors out there that it's my way or the highway kind of thing, and the admin hates me, and I think I'm going to end up getting fired, and you've got to establish the art of compromise, or you'll never be happy. The compromise is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of intelligence. You
Right.
know, it's a sign of intelligence. As long as what you're compromising is not a core value, if it's the
Right.
scheduling, okay, that's not a core value. Okay, we can work around it. If it's all the beginners are in one class, we can make that work too.
Right.
And learn how to speak and see things from their side. From their
Right. We're back
side.
to battles and wars again.
Yeah, no kidding.
So,
It's
um,
crazy.
well, I've got one other, it's kind of a two-part thought that I want
Okay.
to throw out there. I'm interested to hear your perspective on it. That uh, I kind of want to encourage those of us who are early in our journey as an educator, and it just feels like this is way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It just feels like some days, have you ever had the thought, is there anything I can do that is the right? I just don't feel like I'm doing the right thing
Yeah.
all ever. Everything I do winds up being a battle or a struggle. But again, I'm going to throw a couple of wooden quotes at you. I just think that he was wonderful in the concept of how we treat people and as teachers. And one of the things he said is if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
That so many times we think that, man, we got this. I'm so excited to, and I'm going to follow that up with his quote that says, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
I like that one.
That we finished our education process formally, but really we just started our education process because the real world doesn't live in a textbook.
Right.
The real world is, as you say, all these young people coming at you from all of their individual home lives, coming at you from different value systems, different belief systems, and it's kind of a daunting, overwhelming thought that you have to take all that individuality and turn it into a band, a
Yes.
choir, an orchestra. You have to take all those different thoughts, all those different, the way people learn is different. And we have to figure out how to teach all of it or everybody. I understand sometimes that feels overwhelming,
Yeah.
but the things that you said today encourage us, number one, to realize that we're all going to make mistakes. We're all, there is no perfect teacher. I hate to say that to some of my friends because I think sometimes we feel like we've got this, uh, or at least we pretend like we do.
Yeah.
But you can do this. You're
Yeah.
gonna make a mistake. It's okay. Say I made a mistake. One of the things that I didn't hear you say out loud is maturity is the ability to understand how your behavior affects other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got to go into this knowing that I am who I am, basically.
Yeah.
You know, we're back to um, one of the things you said earlier that sometimes what we say and what we do don't always match. We are who we are. The sooner we accept that,
Hmm.
now that you've had a semester to realize, wow, this is this is a real thing here. But your education's we're still going here. You quit learning, you die. Have you heard that
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
And so it's what we learn after we think we knew everything, and the world goes surprise.
Hmm. And it is
But it
so hard
doesn't.
to,
Go ahead.
well, I'm just going to say it's really hard as educators because, you know, every class of teachers that, not just band directors, but, within 5 years, three out of those five quit.
I've
They,
heard
they
that.
just do. And and that keeps our pension program alive. So thank you. No, so they come in and we use their money and gain principal on it. I'm here to tell you that being in education was the one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. I would not trade it for any other job in the world. Now maybe playing trumpet for the NBC Orchestra, I don't know, but honestly, I mean, not joking. It's a great living. It is harder than all get out at times, and if you'll just push yourself through it, I really feel like when you get to the end of the process and you're able to retire and you can look back and you get all those notes from students and you know that you did as good a job as you possibly could have done. And it's a worthwhile endeavor. It is. I would much rather, and I'm not trying to be like put down any other thing, but I would much rather be a person that had my hand in education and shaping people's lives and teaching some music and to make them better people than to put cardboard boxes together at the end of an assembly line, for
Yeah.
20 years. It's brought a lot of goodness to me. If you're a teacher that's becoming discouraged, we've talked about it a ton, but contact somebody. Just someone you can vent to. There's some people who call me that I just put the phone on speaker and they just get after it for about 20 minutes and they feel better and we're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just need to vent. I would suggest, for me personally, playing my instrument helped me more than anything. It made me remember why I was in music. So it
Right.
was always fun just to practice my instrument. I've been playing trumpet for 50 years, marched in the Macy's parade, and this next New Year's Day, 2026, I'm doing the Rose Bowl parade with
Oh,
the
cool.
same group, 400 band directors. So, and the reason I bring that up is not, oh, look at me, because basically you just pay the fee and you join and you go do it. It's great. It's not like an audition process to get into this. But I get to be around 400 band directors for 6 days.
Right.
And
And
for
it
six
touches that
days,
soulish part. Yeah.
we're all band kids. Think about
Yeah.
that. There's another guy that's director, John Waters, and we're just band kids, and it's so cool to just sit there and talk with people from around the country and know that the problems are the same, the kids are the same, the band directors are the same, but we took all these people, some far left politically, some far right, every religion, every color, every gender, every whatever. And we made wonderful music together in 6 days. In fact, the first rehearsal, we made wonderful music together. And to me, that filled my soul. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
I do.
so get out there if you're a little bit discouraged or a lot discouraged, find something to play in a church orchestra, or just find local band directors who want to put together a brass quintet and play at different functions. And I could go on forever on that. But I think sometimes we forget the reason why we loved music was because we loved creating music. And if you're a director, you're not really creating music, you're facilitating the creation of music. And that's different. So sometimes you got
Yeah.
to pick up your instrument and actually create music. But man, it's the greatest profession in the world. I can't say that I got rich by it, but I've been comfortable.
Sure.
I've worked hard and I've been able to pay all my bills, and I've got health care and I've got a pension. So I think it's worth it financially. Just hang in there. Hang in there. That'd be my encouragement to you. You are making a
Right. And
difference.
my last thought is going to be exactly what you said. Sometimes we feel like we're geographically alone,
Hmm.
but realize you have community.
Yeah.
And isn't it wonderful to live in a world where you can flip on Ask Mike and have community, where you can pick up your phone and talk to or communicate with other people that do what you do. You're not by yourself.
Right.
Sometimes it feels lonely trying to, especially if you're trying to create culture, if you're trying to teach leadership, if you're trying to teach music, if you're trying to, uh, you're going to get there, guys, gals,
Yeah.
friends.
It's worth it.
It, it will be worth it. The journey. Quit looking at, we've already had the conversation about trophies versus process. Trust the process.
Hmm. Look at
And
the kids, not the trophies.
there you go. We appreciate every one of you that dedicates your energy and your heart to creating music and musicians. So hope your coming semester is fantastic. fantastic. And that if you have any questions about how to make it better, hey, I know a guy. Ask Mike at intunemusic.com. There's my commercial at the end of all that.
There you go.
But we appreciate you. Have the best new year you could possibly have. Anything else, Mike?
No, I'm good, man. I'm just gonna relax now.
All right. Happy New Year, friend.
You too. You too.